Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the General Government Budget Committee. We are wrapping things up almost entirely on schedule with the snow days. I think that's kind of impressive. Special announcement today, Representative Henderson has survived another trip around the sun. Happy birthday. I'm not going to sing because I like you. All right, today, class, we're going to hear the budgets for the Judicial Branch and the Judicial Council. We will not be working any budgets today, so you can not look ahead to any amendments that you want to make, and instead can focus entirely upon the action at hand. And to get us up to speed on the Judicial Branch, we have none other than the great analyst, Stephen Wu.
Oh, no pressure. Good afternoon, committee. My name is Stephen Wu, Senior Fiscal Analyst with Legislative Research. We'll be speaking on the document with Judicial Branch up top. There'll be two of them today, so don't look at the one. It'll be Judicial Branch first and then Judicial Council. Before I get started, I want to recognize that we have a number of folks from the Judicial Branch with us in the audience today. Chief among them is the Chief Justice, Marla, as well as Stephanie Button, the Judicial Administrator of the Judicial Branch, and a number of other representatives as well. We'll be able to provide some additional context and details to the information I'm going to provide. So a quick overview of the agency. The primary function for the Judicial Branch is the administration of justice throughout the state of Kansas. There is one thing to note about this agency in terms of the numbers, and it's that the governor's recommendation, all of those numbers will mirror the agency's request. The governor is statutorily required to pass on the Judicial Branch's budget as submitted. So the GovRec numbers, I'm not going to talk about them at all. I'm just going to talk about the agency request. The governor's recommendation assume those numbers are all the same. You can find an executive summary and an overview on the first couple of pages. I'm going to jump directly into the fiscal year 22 analysis. However, you can find that on page 215. So at the end of last session, the legislature had approved the Judicial Branch's budget for expenditures totaling about $168.2 million in expenditures and about 1,938 FTE positions. Since that point, there has been one adjustment prior to the agency submitted its budget, and that's detailed in item number 1. There was a reappropriation of about $6.9 million in unspent SGF that was shifted over from 21 to 22. This is largely the result of the 7.4 million SGF included in the appropriations bill last year, appropriated to compensate for the decrease in docket fee fund docket revenues. So, because of various timing issues, the Judicial Branch didn't spend that entire 7.4 at the end of 21, so the remaining amount rolled over into 22. For the agency's budget request proper, they request about $165.5 million and 1938 FTE positions. About $138 million of this comes from SGF, and about $18.7 million of this comes from the docket fee fund. Now, this is a bit lower than what the legislature approved. After you factor in those adjustments for the reappropriated SGF, it's about $9.6 million lower. The decrease is primarily due to item number 3. There is about a $8.6 million reduction for docket fee fund expenditures. So this will be one of the items that one of the themes that the Judicial Branch, that you'll see in the Judicial Branch's budget for these fiscal years. So the agency lowered its planned expenditures from the docket fee fund from about $27.3 million to about $18.7 million after the 2021 session. This includes the $6.9 million that rolled over. These expenditures occur in a wide variety of categories. One reason for this is the decline in docket revenues, and to sort of highlight some items to come, this is in part due to declining revenues to fee funds. The Judicial Branch is looking to change the overall funding structure for how they are funded at a high level. The change is also due to item number 4. There's a bit of a decrease, about $1.7 million for e-court expenditures. The Judicial Branch is nearing the end of its rollout of e-court, so it's transitioning from rolling out and implementation of the program to maintenance and operations. So you'll see a bit of a change there. There's also some decreases. Excuse me. The agency request also includes some capital improvements expenditures. You'll see that detailed in item number 5. You'll also see that detailed in the last couple of pages of the report. There's about $445,000. There is some monies for a secure mailroom in the Judicial Center, and there's some monies for the second phase of a Court of Appeals office relocation project. Both of those items have been approved by the Joint Committee on State Building Construction. Moving on to 23, you'll see that detailed on page 218. So for fiscal year 23, the agency requests about $177.7 million in expenditures and about 2,000 FTE positions. This includes about $148.3 million SGF and about $21.8 million from the docket fee fund. This is a bit higher than what the agency requested in the previous year, about $12.2 million higher than what the agency requested in 22. And it's largely due to a number of items which you'll see detailed on the table. So I'll start with item number 1. Item number 1 is an enhancement request for $5.4 million SGF and 58 FTE positions for some new judge and staff positions. So if we take a few steps back to sort of set the stage for this, in fiscal year 2020, the Judicial Branch contracted with the National Center for State Courts for a workload study for its court services officers, for some judges, as well as for some administrative assistants. The study was completed in fiscal year 21, and based on the recommendation, the study recommended 20 new judge positions and 9 new staff positions statewide. But the Judicial Branch quickly found out that it couldn't implement those recommendations without violating the statutory requirements of 1 judge per county within the state. So as a result, the Judicial Branch reached out to the chief judges in the district courts across the state and started a conversation on what personnel needs they had in the district courts throughout the state. Based on that feedback, they determined that the Judicial Branch as a whole could use 14 new district judges, 9 new district magistrate judges, 13 new court reporters, and 22 new administrative assistants. Those would be distributed throughout the state based on the counties listed at the bottom of 218 on the top of 219. You can see where each of those positions would be. Of note, some of them would be here in Topeka within the Judicial Center, but otherwise they're spread across the state. Second, item number 2 is a enhancement request of about $325,000 in 4 FTE positions. This is for 4 new positions within the Judicial Branch, and they're all due to efficiencies realized both from the centralization of services as well as from the improvements they've made in IT throughout the past couple of years. So those 4 new positions are first, an IT security analyst. This position would work on improving cybersecurity measures. Second is an IT regional operations technician. This position would help support remote technology throughout the agency. Third is an internal auditor to help oversee financial and operational audits. And fourth is a data analyst to help oversee data collection and analysis. You can see a more detailed breakdown of these on 219. That bulleted list contains some more information on each position. Item number 3 is the agency's third and final enhancement request for this fiscal year, and that's for about a little over $256,000, and that's to convert 3 district magistrate judges to 3 district judges when those positions become open. So there are currently 3 judicial districts throughout the state with only 1 district court judge. You can see that detailed on page 220, that boxed table there. The problem those judicial districts are running into is that because there is only 1 district court judge within that judicial district, that judge also necessarily serves as the chief judge, which has a number of administrative responsibilities and duties tagged onto it. And so in terms of the workload as well as the efficiency of that judicial district, the Judicial Branch has determined that it would be most beneficial to convert some district magistrate judges to district judge positions within those districts. Now, this wouldn't be an immediate conversion. It would be whenever those positions become open. So when a current district magistrate judge retires or leaves their position, the position to be filled, if this enhancement request were granted, would be a district judge position instead of a magistrate judge. So those are the 3 enhancement requests for the Judicial Branch for fiscal year 23. There are also a number of other non-enhancement items of change within their budget. Those are detailed in 4, 5, 6, and 7. I'm just going to cover them very lightly. Number 4 is the second year of the judicial salary plan that was passed in last year's appropriations bill. It is for 5% for their judges of the judicial branch. There's also item number 5, 9 million SGF to eliminate the judicial surcharge. So there is a statutory provision that allows the judicial branch to levy surcharges to fund the costs of non-judicial personnel in the state. The agency has indicated their intent to move away from relying on these surcharges, these fees, and instead move their funding structure towards being funded by SGF. The agency has indicated that funding courts through this way, through SGF, would create a more stable funding structure overall. If you'll recall their testimony from previous session, from last session, on the drop from docket fees, the revenue generated from docket fees, that created a lot of difficulties and obstacles and uncertainties within their budget, having to rely on these fees. So instead, there is a bill currently sitting in House Appropriations, HB 2541, which would move the credit of these fees to SGF, and accordingly, the judicial branch would take an SGF appropriation based on the amount that's needed for operations. The other items to change are number 6 details some shifts in SGF and docket fee fund expenditures to compensate for the lack of carryover monies like there was in the reappropriated funds in 22. And there's a bit of a decrease in e-court spending for servicing and maintenance. It's item number 7. And lastly, for 23, there are some capital improvements here as well. There is some monies requested for an IT help desk, as well as to develop some space for centralized court services within the Judicial Center. Again, both of those items have been approved by the Joint Committee on State Building Construction as well. Happy to go through more that in any additional detail. However, I think for the sake of brevity and as well to turn the mic over, we'll cut my comments there and be happy to answer any questions.
Right. Now, I think we got started a little too fast for me because in 22, I did have a question. Mr. Wu, could you walk me through the SGF lapse fringe benefit adjustments in number 2 here? That was, for some reason, it didn't click in my head.
Sure. So you should be seeing this in a couple of different agencies. If you recall, last year, the legislature passed the, I think it's HB 2405, which authorized some CAPERS pension obligation bonds. Those bonds were let, and the subsequent to that, the appropriations bill also contained language to adjust employer contribution amounts. So you'll see a slight decrease for that.
I see it now. Okay, excellent. Thank you. All right, committee, any questions for Analyst Wu? 22 or 23? Yes, Representative Wagner.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Analysts, I do have a question. A couple things really stand out. Again, looking at the 406 report. So on the rents that they have, I mean, they jumped from 610,000 in 21 to 1.2 million, down to 946, and realizing in fiscal year 2020 rents were only $341,000. So have they added? What is all the rents about?
A lot of that is to account for network infrastructure. The judicial branch as a whole has had to put a lot of resources into providing additional IT services in the past couple of years, largely due to the pandemic. So the part of that increase is due to the additional space needed for that.
So it's like rent for like server locations, like for IT?
It's, as an umbrella, I would categorize under IT, but in terms of more specifics, I'd have to follow up with you after. Okay.
I do have another question also regarding just some of these changes. So the repairing and servicing in 52400, in 2020 and 2021 was over 3.2 million both years. It's dropping down to 2.1 and 2.2, and that is related to what cost? Or it's dropping noticeably?
So some of the e-court expenditures are accounted for with that code. So
E-courts,
or the centralized case management system. So as the agency has moved from implementation, which costs a bit more upfront, to operations, which costs a bit less, excuse me, to see a decrease.
Okay. One more thing to jump on is on the fees, professional services. I mean, again, fiscal year 2020, they're 2.3 million. They jumped to 5.6, and they drop back down to 3.5 and 2.8. Is that
a lot of that will be a similar story? The implementation of ePort to get that rolling up, up front. There'll be a bit more of a cost, and then as it moves in operations, it's back down to
okay? I think that has it. So I guess I would ask one other just parallel question, though I would guess just from a normal business operations, but the capital outlays is where I would assume it's less capital outlays going forward. I mean, they had 5.4 dropping to 3.6, 3.0. The higher capital outlays in 2021 is over what?
double check on that. I believe a lot of it is for IT infrastructure as well as for various supplies and stuff needed for.
Any further questions? Seeing none. All right. Well, I'd like to welcome to the stage Chief Justice Marla Lukert. Welcome to committee.
Thank you, Chairman Sutton and members of the committee. Thank you, Mr. Wu, for that excellent presentation, and to all of you for allowing us to present the Judicial Branch budget request. In January, I had the honor of addressing you and explaining the state of the judiciary. In that address, I explained how the pandemic had pushed us and our resilient workforce to re-engineer court processes. Grant funding became available that really propelled us to provide opportunities in our efforts to respond to Kansans' ever-increasing demand for online government services. Overall, we have improved our service to Kansans and increased access to justice. We could not have done those and taken those enormous strides in providing improved access to justice to all Kansans without your response to our budget needs last year. I stood before this committee a year ago and asked for very needed pay raises for our employees and judges. You responded by committing to increase the pay of every employee position to last year's market rate by July 1st, 2022. You also included a 5% pay increase for our judges in both fiscal year 2022 and 2023. This has lifted employee morale, and we see improved qualifications in the applicants for many of our employee positions, as well as in our retention. You also funded 70 new court service officers. These new positions have guaranteed that the branch can meet its fundamental and statutory duties in this area. While those changes have been transformative for the branch, we continue to face staffing challenges at two ends of the salary spectrum. On one end, we have trouble filling our lowest paid court clerk positions. We must compete with rapidly increasing salaries that businesses across the economy are offering to these entry-level positions. And at the other end of the spectrum, we struggle to attract judicial candidates. As of July 1st, 2021, after the first 5% increase, our neighboring states paid their trial judges on average $30,000 more per year than does Kansas. Within Kansas, judges' positions do not compete with the salaries at either the public or the private sector. So while challenges remain, we are extremely grateful for the employee and judge pay increases you allocated last year. Today, we ask that you keep in place that second year of the plan you adopted last year. That would be the 5% increase for the judges and the second step of a 2-year phased-in pay increase to bring our employees to their market pay, as calculated at the time of our budget submission to the Division of Budget in late summer 2020. I mention that date of calculation because by the time the last phase of that raise is implemented, that calculation of market wages will be 2 years old. And as we all know, we have as a nation experienced substantial cost of living increases in that 2-year period. For that reason, I sincerely hope you will include judicial branch judges and employees in any cost of living increase you are considering for state personnel. Otherwise, we will erode the gains brought about by your heavy lifting of last year. Today, beyond closing that circle of the steps you implemented last year, we ask that you assist us in 4 ways as we continue our efforts to attract and retain the employees and judges Kansans expect and deserve. First, we request creating and filling some new judgeships along with some support staff to assist those judges. Second, we request funding to convert 3 existing magistrate judge positions to district court judge positions. Third, in addition to the administrative support for those new judge positions, we request adding 9 other administrative assistants in district courts and 4 new statewide positions. And finally, we ask to end our dependence on the volatile and unpredictable fee funding by redirecting those fees to the state general fund and in return, appropriating state general fund to the judicial branch in an amount equal to the projected fee revenue. Focusing in a little more detail on those requests, we first request $5 million for 10 new magistrate positions and 13 new district judge positions, along with administrative assistant and court reporters to support those district judge positions. This enhancement request, as Mr. Wu set out, data from the National Center for State Courts weighted workload study for judges that reported an increased need for judges in some areas of the state. A breakdown of where these positions would be located can be found in my written testimony. As you will see, the need for those judges broadly parallels the areas of the state where we have experienced population growth. This growth has occurred over time, but Kansas has not created any new judicial positions since 2008 when the 246th judge was added. As a result, 13 of our 31 judicial districts lack the necessary judicial resources to efficiently manage our caseload. The workload study showed that 4 of those 13 districts need more judges than we have requested. In the study, showed that these 13 districts would need a 49.4 new judges to meet the needs of those districts where we have short judicial coverage. But we balance those needs against budget issues as well as considerations such as space within a courthouse. And we limited our request to these 23 judges. In conversations with our chief judges, we determined whether the district's needs would best be met by magistrate judges, district court judges, or a combination of each. If you approve this enhancement, we will have magistrate judges in counties, in some districts, like Sedgwick and Shawnee County, that currently only have district court judges. Those counties would for the first time have magistrate judges. Our second budget request is for about $250,000 cost for converting 3 district magistrate judge positions to district court positions. These conversions would take place in 3 judicial districts that currently have only 1 district court judge in the entire district. Each of these districts consists of 6 counties, and each has 6 magistrate judges. These districts are the 24th, which is in west central Kansas, largest population area, probably Larned, to give you a point of reference, and the 12th, which is in north central Kansas along the Nebraska-Kansas border, basically from Decatur to Republic County, and the 17th, which is just to the west of the 12th and further south. By statute, only district court judges can hear some cases, and these are generally the more complex cases. This means that that one judge must handle all of those complex cases in the 6 counties, plus carry the administrative workload of being the chief judge for those 6 counties. This may slow processing of cases. Converting one magistrate position in each of these districts to a district court judge position will improve the effective and efficient management of the caseload in that district. As Mr. Wu explained, we do not intend to convert these immediately, but through attrition, meaning upon the death, resignation, retirement, or removal of a current magistrate judge. For example, and most likely how this will occur, would be when a current magistrate judge in a specified county decides to retire. This position would be converted to a district court judge position. Our last request is for about, in terms of enhancement, is for about $325,000 to fund 9 judicial administrative assistants in district courts and 4 positions that will expand technology and other central services statewide. Again, these 9 judicial assistants are in addition to the 13 assistants requested to support the new district court judge positions we're asking for. This request follows the weighted caseload study that revealed the need for these assistants in different parts of the state. As for the 4 statewide support positions, 2 would increase our information technology staff. 1 would be a regional technology officer and the other a security officer. The regional IT position would assist the district courts with their operation technology needs for such things as our statewide e-filing, our emerging statewide case management system, as well as for the various remote and online services that we have added in the last 2 years. The requested IT security officer will beef up our cybersecurity efforts. The latest IT security audit conducted by the Legislative Post-Audit Committee recommended that the Judicial Branch continue to prioritize IT security. This position would assist our current cybersecurity officer in these efforts and would also be available to help with the rollout of our centralized case management system. The other 2 positions that we are seeking for statewide internal help would be an internal auditor and a data analyst. The internal auditor would oversee internal financial audits as well as operational audits for our district courts, the appellate courts, our licensing boards, and our other programs. The data analyst would allow us to collect and analyze data more robustly. With the completion of the rollout of our statewide centralized case management system, the Judicial Branch for the first time will have one statewide system with uniform data points. This will allow us to compile and study data and statistics in a way we've not been able to before. Besides providing data for internal management, you and other stakeholders often request data compilations and analysis. This position would assist in responding to those information requests and help us examine how to improve our operational efficiency. The 4th area, the final one, is one that's not truly before you today, but one you may need to keep in mind when making final appropriation decisions. This item represents the policy shift that seeks to move the funding of the Judicial Branch's core operations away from unreliable fee funding. The bill would make these statutory changes to implement this policy is, as Mr. Wu explained, now in House appropriations in the form of House Bill 2541. To briefly explain, House Bill 2541 would shift the deposit of the Judicial Branch's share of court user fees from Judicial Branch accounts to the State General Fund. We would then ask you to increase the state general fund appropriation element by the amount we project the court user fees will generate. In other words, we anticipate the state general fund will receive an increase in funds equal to the appropriation. The rationale for this change is that it would eliminate the judicial branch's dependence on the volatile and unpredictable funding. The up and down nature of these funds creates cash flow difficulties throughout the year for the judicial branch. And these difficulties are hard to manage because this income is primarily used to fund salaries. That means during periods of cash flow shortfalls, we can't fill staff positions that are often critical to the timely and efficient processing of our cases. This burden falls on the shoulders of the remaining employees and on those Kansans whose cases may be delayed because of staffing shortages. Again, if House Bill 2541 becomes law, we ask this committee and subcommittee and then the committee to note this shift in the deposit of fee funding that will create the need to appropriate state general funds in the judicial branch in an amount equal to the projected fees that are shifted to that fund. To close, I will again like to express my gratitude for your help last year when the judicial branch faced unprecedented challenges in fee funding because of the pandemic. You collaborated with us to assist us and ensure that courts function for Kansans. And you funded needed pay increases for our employees, addressing an underfunding problem the branch had faced for years. I appreciate your efforts and your service to Kansas and your recognition that the Kansas Judicial Branch, as a core service of government, must have the resources to timely and efficiently provide access to justice. Our budget request strengthens our core objective by focusing on providing additional judges and employee positions to safeguard timely access to justice for all Kansans. We ask you to help strengthen our Kansas courts. Mr. Chairman, with your permission, we will present testimony from Chief Judge Charles Drogy from the 10th Judicial District, which consists of Johnson County, of Todd Hechschmidt, the Court Administrator for the 28th Judicial District, which consists of Saline and Ottawa counties, and Stephanie Bunton, our Judicial Administrator, who at the time of submitting this budget also was serving as our Chief Financial Officer and prepared the budget. And so, Representative Wagner, I'm not ignoring your questions, but I am going to suggest to you that she is much better able to answer those than I will be. But that said, I am happy to stand for any questions that you might have.
And I thank you for that. Due to the fact that we have a number of people, I think we should go through and hear the testimony and then maybe kind of address the questions and see who jumps up to answer them when the time comes.
I understand. Thank you, Representative Sutton and members of the committee for your attention. Thank you.
All right, thanks for being here. All right, next up, I'd like to call on the Honorable Charles Drogy from the 10th Judicial District.
Thank you. Thank you for having me here today, Chairman Sutton, and members of the committee. My name is Charles Drogy. I am the Chief Judge of the 10th Judicial District, and that's Johnson County, Kansas. Mr. Sutton, I think you know that county well. And so...
before you a number of times, I'm sure.
I don't think you have, for the record. All right. So Johnson County grows 10,000 people per year. And since 2007 and 8 is when the last time that a judicial position was granted to the 10th Judicial District, Johnson County's population has increased by over 150,000 citizens. Add to that we're next to Jackson County, which is about 700,000 people. We are 600 plus thousand population now since the last census. 700,000 over in Jackson County, 150,000 in Wyandotte County, over 100 in Douglas County, Miami County, I believe, is around 30,000. So within 30 minutes of drive, we've got a population of about 1.5 million. that those, and we're so mobile these days that we have litigation coming from all of those various counties, across from the state line, county lines, everywhere else. Our judges are always rated very highly by the public as to the professionalism and the way that they efficiently handle the dockets. But the type of litigation that we see in Johnson County in this weighted case study, very complex business, complex litigation, medical malpractice. We have quite an increase in crime with capital crimes that occur now in Johnson County that probably didn't occur there very much, perhaps 10 or 15 years ago. So we have all the problems of the big city, and we are very much in need of additional help with regard to extra judges. We have 19 district court judges now and 3 magistrates, and we are asking that you help us by granting us another 3 additional district court judges. That weighted case study says we probably ought to have about 9 based upon the type of cases and the number of cases we have. And so I'd also like to thank you very much for the funding for the employees, the courthouse employees. The morale in that courthouse has grown increasingly as they receive this additional monies in their salary. We're asking that if you are going to consider a COLA for the rest of the state employees, that you also consider that for judicial branch employees as well. And so that is pretty much what I'd like to tell you about our situation. Johnson County, I believe from the census, is 20% of the population of the rest of the state. And so we hope that you can address our situation and provide us with the authority to 3 additional district court judges. Thank you very much for letting me testify here today. I certainly will answer questions, but if you'd like for me to sit down and then ask questions later, certainly I'll do that.
I thank you, and I think that might be the best way to go about it.
Thank you very much.
All right. Next, I have Todd Hechschmidt, Court Administrator for the 28th Judicial District. I guess because you're an administrator, you don't get to be called honorable, is that?
I do not.
All right, very good.
Chairman Sutton, members of the subcommittee, thank you for having me here this afternoon. Like I said, I'm the court administrator for Saline and Ottawa counties, which makes up the 28th Judicial District. I have been involved straight out of college, working for the state now for just over 33 years. My trip kind of took me from starting off as a probation officer in the 28th District. I then was the chief probation officer over in the 8th Judicial District, which is Junction City, Gary County, Dickinson County, Marion, and Morris, and then came back to the 28th District as the court administrator. Since my time back in December of 1988, when I began in Salina, to today, we've got the same number of district court judges and the same number of magistrate judge, which is 4 district judges, 1 magistrate. In the study, and I think all of you got a copy of the deal. I'm not going to repeat everything in there, but we are considered, I'll say, a mid-sized district. Court system, we look at the big 4, which would be like Sedgwick, Johnson, Wyandotte, Shawnee, and then we have mid-sized districts and then rural districts. We're a mid-sized district, but if you look at our cases, we're probably in the upper 1, 2, or 3 mid-level districts. Our judges need help. We try to support everybody as much as we can. Another deal that comes on, and I don't know, might lean back and ask about Johnson County, but another thing that's taken up a lot of, I'll say, judicial time is pro se litigants. It's one of the deals where people are representing themselves, might not know the judicial process, therefore hearings take longer and push everything back. I will sit there and say the added salary boost that we had last year was well received. In years past, I wish I would have done it again last year, but several years ago, we did get a nice little increase. And what we did for that for morale is I went and took a payday candy bar and put it on everybody's desk. So when they got it, they got a payday. And if anybody's tried the new payday candy bars that are dipped in chocolate, very good. But we are still struggling with our entry-level positions, which is our trial court clerk 2 positions. From personal experience on that, I'll say they actually both hires turned out great. However, we had one about 8 months ago, another one about 6 months ago. The 8 months ago, we got less than 5 applicants. The plus that we got out of that was one of the applicants was a trial court clerk 2 in El Dorado. Her husband got transferred to Salina. We were able to hire that person. So that worked out great. But the number of applicants, not so great. Our second applicant or our second hire came from Georgia to Kansas because her husband got a job in Salina. And again, we only had 4 applicants for that position. I'm also a member of I'm the president for the Kansas Association of District Court Clerks and Administrators. Had another example of an opening. They get 4 candidates. Before they have the interview, 2 of them called and withdrew. Don't know if they got better jobs or another job. That would be my guess. In referencing the COLA, giving a COLA to all state employees, including all judicial branch. We do have several, myself included, that are long-term judicial branch employees that are maxed out on the pay plan. The only type of increase they get is a COLA, and that's what they look forward to. I get questioned about this time every year. Have you heard anything yet? Have you heard anything yet? No, not yet. So I would ask that we all get our cost of living adjustment. In closing, we are extremely grateful for the salary increase implemented during the last legislative session. We would just ask that it continue on the judge's side, getting that 5% for the non-judicial employees that are not yet up to market value, that they be brought up to market value. With that, are there any questions? Wait.
Thank you very much. Yeah, let's have Stephanie talk, and then we'll see kind of yes, Stephanie is the next one on the list, and then we'll see what questions pop up and who they're best geared toward.
Very good. Thank you, Chairman Sutton.
But just observation on my part, you seem pretty honorable to me. But Stephanie, I've known too long. So welcome to committee, Stephanie Bunton, Kansas Judicial Administrator.
Thank you. Good afternoon, Chairman Sutton and members of the committee. I am Stephanie Bunton, Judicial Administrator for the Kansas Judicial Branch. Thank you for allowing us to testify today. I won't take much of your time because I want to stand for any questions you have on all the moving parts of our budget. But I do want to take a moment to thank you for the appropriation you made to bring all employees' salaries to last year's market rate by this July 1st. That measure has made a profound change, as you have heard from the other people testifying today. Our local court administrators are reporting statewide that they are seeing some of the best qualified applicants that they have seen. When I've been in local courthouses, the morale is much improved. Offices are staffed. We are so grateful for your efforts in funding the judicial branch budget. The shift in employee morale is amazing. One technical aspect I do want to touch on, as Chief Justice Lukert mentioned, there's a bill that is currently in the House Appropriations Committee that would shift deposit of those fees that fund core judicial branch operations to SGF. For our budget to balance, we need to have an equal amount of SGF appropriation in return. If the bill is enacted, we need to have this shift to an additional SGF appropriation for our budget, essentially. We will work with legislative research in the revisor's office on the exact number each year, but it is probably in the ballpark of 27 to 28 million in the out years. Again, this is essentially net neutral because the fee revenue will be shifted to SGF. The additional judges we have requested will necessarily help move through the caseload quicker. It can reduce incarcerations on the front end for those individuals who are incarcerated pretrial, and it will save the costs associated with it. And by having more judges, it allows us to expand specialty courts across the state. And specialty courts keep people out of jail, the research has shown, and prison on the back end of cases. Currently, specialty court programming is paid for by grants, not with state funds. In closing, we look forward to continued collaboration with you to ensure the judicial branch is equipped with the resources necessary to perform its critical functions of government. And I do want to address a couple of questions that Representative Wagner asked. So you will notice in fiscal year 2021, there's a large increase in expenditures. That's because we got COVID relief funds of more than $5 million, and we were able to roll out workstations, remote technology equipment to courthouses across Kansas. That's reflected in capital outlay and some in contractual services. We developed a portal where protection from abuse orders could be filed remotely, a marriage license application. We worked with Information of Network of Kansas to develop that so that marriage license could be applied for and remotely. And so those are reflected in some of those categories. And then we also provided grants or money to district courts. So that would be reflected in aid to local units for audiovisual equipment, personal protective equipment, and just general remote technology expenditures as well. And then Stephen talked about how the expenditures fluctuate, and that really is based on our e-court, how it's being rolled out across the state.
You should mention that. That's where my line of questioning was going to come from. E-court, that's something that has been in development since just about the first day I walked in here. So it's been going. So I'm excited to see it finally rolling out. That's exciting. And my question is really, okay, it's two-pronged, I guess. First off, what sort of impact is that going to have on the caseloads for judges and support staff across the state? And the second part of that, and it was kind of hinted at in the budget, that we run up against the statutory requirement of one judge per county, and then that modifies the enhancement because we have to maintain that, even though that study may have recommended a reduction in some counties. Where do we balance these two? What's the best way to balance these two? And is it time to revisit the one judge per county? I know that's not popular, and I'll get sticks thrown at me and stuff. That's fine. But is it time to revisit that in order to maintain efficiency for our judicial branch?
Okay, so to answer your first question, we don't anticipate it changing the actual caseload because those are filed by Highway Patrol outside entities, outside parties. What we do see with the rollout of the centralized case management system is it changes the skill set, particularly for our clerks. It's a higher level of work. It's working with electronic data. And it also, we have seen changes also from the pandemic. A lot of administrative duties have been added to their plates as well. We are seeing, so it's rolled out to a little more than a quarter of the state right now, and we're adding several more counties in the next few months. And so what we are seeing is the opportunity for work share has been great. So that someone in Western Kansas can help someone in one of the urban areas. We've piloted several different types of this work share, and it's working immensely. We're also piloting it, or we're using it in the Office of Judicial Administration. We've centralized the collection of payments, court fees, fines, and so we've been able to utilize people in other counties to help with that. And so that's been amazing. As far as the one judge per county, that is a policy issue, and so we do not weigh into that. Yes.
Good. Fair enough. That one will just be on my shoulders. That's fine. All right, committee, any further questions? Representative French.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you for being here, all of you. As you well know, 4 years I've been here, this committee has supported your branch probably as well as you can expect of us, and it's been the appropriations that have cut some of our help to you out. And I was glad last year we finally got some additional funding for salaries. We basically had to have, I think. As you also know, that our state employees got nothing last year. So I'm working very hard to get a COLA of, I don't know how much, but with inflation the way it is, it's got to be something or we're going to lose a lot of state employees. So you want the 5% that we promised you last year plus the additional COLA. Is that correct?
That's correct. Because of inflation, I mean, we've made a lot of ground, but because of inflation, we would like to be included in that COLA.
And I would support that. I'm just want to make sure we understand that it's the 5% plus whatever the state gives. And also, last year, we thought we were doing something good for you. We gave you the 70 additional court service officers. Unfortunately, I work in the corrections committee, and the KDOC is not happy with that, of course, because they've lost a lot of parole officers that go into your new positions. So that's the problem we have here is we play the whack the mow. We think we're getting rid of one problem and then we just cause another one. So that's one of our problems. We can't always help everybody. And if we help somebody, we might be hurting somebody else. So that kind of have to look at the second, third effects of any kind of pay raise we give because somebody's going to feel bad about it. So anyway, I just want to say thank you for being here, and I'm going to support as much as I can whatever we can do to help you continue to get good people in the judicial branch. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you.
All right, Representative Wagner.
Mr. Chairman, Ms. Bunton, I would imagine part of it was e-courts. I mean, you mentioned, as far as the possibility of work share and how that actually to keep people from there's nothing to do in their court today, so they're just doing nothing, but, e-court, that they can share workload. Do you anticipate that e-court will actually be more efficient overall? It'll lead to efficiencies in processing cases that would result in fewer workers over time, or what?
So we've talked with other states about this. And again, what they have seen is a higher level of work or doing some of those things that we weren't able to do before, like pulling all the data that is needed, sorting through that data, filtering it through the lens that the legislature would like to see it. Some of those higher level tasks, but we are still looking at since we're only a little more than a quarter rolled out across the state, we're really looking to see what efficiencies we are going to receive. And one area is in this area of centralized payments. We might see some decrease in that kind of staffing.
Going to the overall report, which is the Office of Judicial Administration, which I would take as being the administrator, but it does talk about the number of vouchers processed, which I would take it as court cases. The 3-year average had been 4,300, just over 4,300. Of course, with COVID, it was down to 2,800. And then they're anticipating for fiscal year 2022 and 2023, 2,825. Is that literally less cases being filed? That doesn't make sense.
It's not. The number of vouchers are the travel vouchers and bills that accounts payable are being paid. And obviously during the pandemic and with remote technology, those are fewer.
One more question, if I could. You talk about the proposal that you folks have about dropping the fee fund support and having it go to state general fund. And I believe you said it was about a $27 to $28 million differential. Is that correct?
Correct. In a pre-pandemic year, yes.
But last year the fee funds only brought in like 9 million or something, or how much?
That was just the surcharge, and the surcharge is only one component. There's also docket fee funds, which is a larger amount, and driver's license reinstatement fees.
And as part of your proposal, then who would set these fees? I mean, you wouldn't have a vested interest anymore in it per se, because if your funding came just straight from the state general fund, I mean, but you would still be in charge of setting the fee levels.
The docket fees are set by statute. The driver's license reinstatement fees are set by statute. Surcharge is, there's a limit set by statute. And so, and the Chief Justice issues an order, and those have been relatively the same for the last several years. So if the legislature wants that to continue, I mean, I believe that would continue. If the legislature wants the surcharge to go away, then the surcharge you could make it go away.
I mean, again, part of my ignorance on this, if I don't, but why would you want the whole shift away? I mean, if you just stayed with the fee funds, and then it's like, oh, if the numbers really drop, you ask for some supplemental or something. I mean, why? You know, it's. I mean, so many of the things that we deal with here are fee funded in total. I'm just to get away from no fee funds. I just wonder. I don't know what the sort of logic from your folks' end was.
Sure. So the pandemic is a great example because our fees dropped so drastically, and so 7.4 million in a small amount of time, and we didn't have time to get to the legislature, the timing. So we had to enact a statewide hiring freeze that was crippling in many areas of the branch. So we would like to just know the number, work within our budget for the year, and know this is the finite money we have to spend. So, and I do want to point out that we do have some additional fee funds that would not be affected. These are just the fees that fund our core operations, but we have like a fee that court reporters pay, and there's a court reporter fund, and a fee to administer the bar exam. So there are some smaller funds, but for the majority of the funds, fee funds.
Not to her, but to the guy. Sure. Honorable, but is not officially honorable.
Certainly, go ahead.
The gentleman for the court administrator guy. Okay.
That would be
My question.
Mr. Hechschmidt.
Okay, thank you. I'm sorry, I got too many papers there. I did wonder on the position that you're having a hard time filling, like your level one, you know,
Entry level trial court clerk 2. That's what we.
What's your starting pay for that? I mean, just what do you guys run currently?
I'm going to say it's right in either 1350 or.
That's
Sec.
I imagine it varies whether Johnson County versus out west or something, or.
Oh, with the judicial branch, we're all the same. Whether you work in Johnson County or if you work in Saline County and you're a trial court clerk,
Oh wow.
coming in, you get paid the same.
Okay, but you think 1350? Okay, I mean that. Yeah, you would have trouble at that level. Thank you.
I'm sorry, 1492.
Okay, I understand. I mean, I can see why you would have difficulties. Thank you.
Representative Bartenberger.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. My question's for Stephanie. Just speaking about fee funds, I'm curious if this goes into your guys' budget or not. And I'm going through when I got married, so this step. So when I got married, I had to do everything through my local courthouse, through that office. I paid the $85, so forth. But I didn't actually get my marriage certificate. And then I had to pay an additional $15 to get my marriage certificate through like the Office of Vital. Yes. So is that through you guys, that $15, or is that through somewhere else? Because you're talking about fee funds. So I wasn't sure if that.
So I would have to look that up and get back to you. I don't think that there might be I think it flows in different directions. So there might be like a surcharge that goes to us, but I'd have to get you the particular information. Okay. I don't want to state it wrong.
No, that's fine. I'm just trying to figure out. I mean, I'm also kind of curious too with some of these fee funds. I feel like we're paying fee funds for no reason. I already paid $85 to get the marriage license, and then that's not the official marriage license. You have to pay an additional $15 to get the official marriage license, and then you can't change your name unless you have one. Sorry, frustrated, but it took me a while to change my name. But just throw that. I was just curious.
You'll note that we still haven't changed the name on our tag. It's even slower in the legislature. Good question, Representative Amix.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This would be for Stephanie. So as we go over this change to the state general fund, I guess my question would be, this is as an outsider looking in, it always seems to me that the courts are working on a quota system because of all of these docket fees. You know, your budget can change and go around. How is this going to just stabilize things? You know, you're always going to have, you know, I heard a minute ago, and maybe I heard it wrong. You know, there's amount of monies that are going to go in from the fees that you already collect. You're going to base your budget on all of that new money that you have, that we have in state general fund.
Well, I think we would look at like a 5-year average because some years it's high, some years it's low. So we're not juggling, you know, we're not trying to play, oh no, it's going to be low, let's hold positions open. And then courts, you know, district courts are being hurt by that. So it would just be one number that would, and we would budget for our expenditures. So, I mean, and that's what we would do. And so it would be a steady revenue source.
Sure. So then the fees, there would no longer be docket fees?
I don't believe so unless the legislature decides that. The docket fees would be collected, but we would send them all to the state general fund.
The state general fund.
Mm-hmm.
This
How
really,
it's going to be funded?
sure. Oh, yeah.
Okay.
This looks to me, the way I kind of process this, because I had the same question. Do you really want that to be reliant upon SGF? What we're really looking at is trying to use the diversification of the fund revenues of SGF to smooth out the volatility that their fee funds tend to experience based on, I don't know, random diseases or what have you. You know. Yes, Representative Burrows.
Thank you. And follow up on that, who will be doing the administration of the docket fee funds now?
Well, I mean, it is collected in the courthouses, and then we send it in the central payment center to the state general fund. We send it now to the state treasurer for the docket fee fund. So it would just be moving from, you have one checking account here, so you move the deposit of those fees into this checking account over here.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I think it's a really good idea. To be honest with you, I think it gives us an opportunity to play an extra step in.
And I would concur. I think, particularly from their viewpoint, smoothing out that volatility is a heck of an idea. Now, the only difficulty is to make sure that and certainly we can't bind future legislators, but to make sure that we carry our end of the bargain and make sure that we are making whole that fee fund or those expenditures that they need to make. Representative Burrows.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And as you and many of the members of the committee know, that the volatility in the docket fee and the surcharge, it seems like every other year we're passing a surcharge bill, and there's always risk in us not being able to get that passed. And that volatility is reflected in both, I would think. And so I would hope that we would give this consideration, stabilization within the judicial branch budget. If we have issues with the docket fee fund and surcharge, that would be on us to deal with in a more appropriate manner than through the judicial branch.
Said appropriate. That's right. It would be in the appropriate manner. Questions? Representative French.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just one question on the budget, and it's a minor question, I'm sure. Education services, $17,876 in 2021, and all of a sudden it jumps to $265,357. Can you explain that a little bit for me?
Sure. So we are responsible for a number of education costs. One, by statute, is municipal judge training and municipal clerk training. And so we've had in-person conferences for those, and they had to be canceled during COVID. So there's the jump again. And there's an actual fee that's collected in municipal courts to pay for that. We have training of all of our judges, our court services officers, our managers, our clerks. But a lot of that had to be canceled during COVID. The jump. Mm-hmm. Sure. So, National Center for State Courts, states are members of that organization, state judicial branches, but they administer some federal grants out of their organization. They do a lot of consulting for courts. They helped with our salary study that was done several years ago, but basically they have so much data from other states that they're able to use that to help with consulting and studies that are done. And that study that was done included them coming in, examining working with our data people to examine all the numbers and the caseloads, and then working with a committee of judges, in the case of the judges weighted caseload study, to look at the time that's spent on different cases, because every case is not the same. A traffic case does not take the same amount of time as a high-level felony case. So they assigned case weightings. They had focus groups where they met with people throughout the state, and then they issued their report. And they've done this in several other states because they have that experience with the court system.
We have to pay for that study?
The original one, I believe, was paid for by grant funding, but then the follow-up one that was done most recently was paid for with state funds with Judicial Branch.
That was approved by the legislature?
Correct.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Not seeing any further questions, committee. You'll also note that you'll have written-only testimony from the Honorable Kim Cudney, President of the Kansas District Judges Association. So be sure to read that after the meeting, not right now. That would be rude. Thanks for being here. All right, committee, we're not really changing gears all that much. Let's get up to speed with the Judicial Council budget, also brought to you by Stephen Wu.
Good afternoon, committee. I'm talking from the Judicial Council budget analysis. Before we get started, I want to recognize that we have Executive Director Nancy Strauss as well as the Chief Financial Officer Williams with us today. So a couple of quick notes for the Judicial Council. I'm going to keep my remarks primarily focused on the first couple of pages. They have an executive summary section. So just for an overview, the Judicial Council, their primary function is to study and recommend improvements to the administration of justice throughout the state of Kansas. There are a number of members that comprise of the council. There's one judge from the Kansas Supreme Court, Chief Justice Bluchert. There's one judge from the Court of Appeals, two judges from the district courts, two legislators, currently it's Representative Fred Patton, as well as Senator Kelly Warren, and lastly, 4 attorneys. The agency also has 5 staff members represented by the 5 FTE positions you see reflected on the budget analysis. They are, as an agency, the Judicial Council also authors and distributes a number of publications. The 5 primary ones are the Pattern Instructions for Kansas Criminal, the Pattern Instructions for Kansas Civil, the Judicial Council Probate Forms, the Municipal Court Manual, as well as the Appellate Practice Handbook. The thing you'll notice about the Judicial Branch's budget, the Judicial Council's budget, similar with the Judicial Branch's budget, the governor's recommendation numbers will be the same as the agency's request numbers. The exact same reason here is the governor's statutorily required to pass it along as received. The thing to note about the Judicial Council's budget is that they don't use state general funds. They're all entirely special revenue funded. So with that said, let's just jump into the executive summary for 22. You'll find that at the bottom of 237. If you want a more detailed breakdown, you can turn to page 242. But since there aren't significant changes from year to year, I'm going to keep my remarks on the executive summary level. So for fiscal year 22, the agency requests about $618,000 in expenditures and 5 FTE positions. Again, no SGF here. This is a bit less than what the legislature approved, a little over $4,000 less. This decrease is primarily due to some personnel changes with a administrative assistant. One was replaced at a lower starting rate. There's also a decrease in reductions from fringe benefits, similar to with the judicial branch. Employer contributions attributed to the issuance of the Capers pension obligation bonds last year are a bit lower because of that issue. 23, you'll see that detailed on page 238. If you want a more detailed breakdown, you can turn to 244 for that. For fiscal year 23, the agency requests about $625,000 and 5 FTE positions. Again, no SGF. This is a bit higher than what the agency requested in 2022, about $7,300 more. This increase is primarily due to a couple things. The first and most significant portion is there's an increase of about $5,000 for attorney fees associated with copyright registrations with the U.S. Copyright Office. These services are just part of the regular publication process, and they occur as the agency has to produce its publications. There's also an increase for some small adjustments for vehicle mileage, printing costs, and OITS services. There's a bit of a downtick during the pandemic for services, for travel, for example. And as the agency ramps back up to normal operations, you'll see a bit of an increase there. So with that, would be happy to dive into this any deeper, but unless the committee would like, happy to turn over for questions or to dive deeper if the committee would like.
A tremendous amount to dive into here. Committee, any questions on this pretty straightforward budget? Representative Wagner.
Mr. Chairman, Analyst Wu, do they have like I don't see like a fee fund balance or something that they keep. Is there such a thing for this budget?
Yeah, if you turn to page 239 and 240, you'll see details on the agency's 2 primary funds, the Judicial Council Fund and the Publication Fee Fund. You'll see about a 10-year history for both of those funds, as well as an overview of where they get their revenue from.
So, okay, but I don't typically there's like expenditures incoming and then outgoing. Then there's like an end of the year balance that is sort of goes from year to year. I don't see that. Does that not?
Sure. It's just not. I chose not to include those with these funds. I can provide that information to you. No problem once I get back to my.
Yeah, if you would, thank you.
Yes, Representative Wagner.
Okay. Their total rent for the year is only $3,200 in 2021 and $3,900. That's pretty cheap rent. So where do they hang out at, or where's the offices?
They're located in the Judicial Center.
In the
Judicial Center, just across the street.
Where the court is? And does Department of Administration set those rates, or they would not set those rates, would they? I mean, that's owned entirely.
Okay, I'm going to turn that over for the agency.
Okay, yeah, I'll ask them. Yeah. All right. Thank you.
Other questions for Mr. Wu? Seeing none. Nice work as usual. All right. With us today, we have Nancy Strauss, Executive Director of the Judicial Council. Janelle Williams, the Fiscal Officer, who will answer the specific questions.
Good afternoon. Thank you, Mr. Chair and Committee. My name is Janelle Williams, and I'm the Fiscal Officer for the Judicial Council. Thank you to Mr. Wu for his overview. Judicial Council is a board. Real quick, we do not pay rent in the Judicial Center. Thank you very much. That rent is for a copier. It's a copier lease, so sorry. In all fairness, because of time, I'm happy to just stand and answer questions.
Representative French.
I just have one question, and I think I asked this question last year. I don't know if I got an answer or not, so I'm going to ask it again. Who decides who's on all of these committees?
That's a great question. We do strive to pull from various areas of the state for geographic diversity. It is a lot of times based on expertise. It depends on the study, if it's probate law or criminal law or one of those standing committees. It's primarily those that are most advised in that area. So it's judges and legislators and attorneys, some lay folks. It kind of just depends on the what you ask us to study.
I see a lot of Topeka, Wichita, Olathe, Overland Park. I don't see a lot out west. Do you not care about the west?
They
have issues too, I'm sure, that they'd like to have addressed by this group.
That's a great question. Like I say, we do pull from areas, out west. It seems that perhaps the attorneys are residing in Johnson County. Perhaps I'm not sure, but maybe Nancy Strauss might be better answer that question.
Good afternoon.
Welcome to committee, Nancy.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chair, members of the subcommittee. It's the council itself that decides the makeup of the committees. And so, like Janelle said, once we're looking for members for a specific committee, a number of factors are considered, and geographic diversity is one of them. I think if you look at all of those committees, you'd see there's at least one person from the western part of the state on each committee. There are not that many attorneys in the western half of the state compared to this part of the state. So that has a lot to do with it. And the attorneys that are in the western part of the state don't tend to have specialized practices. They have general practices. So we pull county attorneys, people that do probate law, people that have general practices, we can get attorneys like that and judges to serve on the committees, but there are more people in the more populous parts of the state to pull from. So that's just how it works out.
The real question I had was, I'm from Leavenworth County. I don't see anybody from Leavenworth, Atchison, Wyandotte. So I feel neglected. I guess that's what it is. I don't know. Anyway,
Isn't Judge King from?
Yeah.
He used to be on our PIC committee, but he resigned.
Yeah. I know it's hard to get people to obligate themselves to these committees. I just want to make sure we're not just focusing on the big cities, because there's other issues out there besides the big cities that need to be addressed. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
I think most of the attorneys in Western Kansas run for the legislature. Representative Burrows.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I would just bring, following up on my colleagues' questions in reference to the council advisory members. And I would hope that the legislators and the spouses of the legislators that are on here would be supportive of your budget through the year. So I'm just curious if there's any little notices that advise them to be supportive in order to.
The Judicial Council. I'm sorry. Can you rephrase that? The spouse.
These are the spouses, legislators, as well as elected officials themselves. I would hope that they would be supportive of the judicial branch budget.
Absolutely.
That I find that that's not necessarily.
And I'm not sure. We hope that as well. Absolutely. Thank you. you know, I think we've had, you know, this is just the current makeup of you know, those advisory committees right now. You know, if I could list every committee member that's ever been, you know, on one of our committees, I'd love to, because it's very prestigious, and we often have the support of the legislature and obviously judicial branch, and we, you know, would hope to do that work and have everybody support us and know who we are and what we do. Absolutely.
Reviewing the list to see who you were talking about.
You're not on there yet.
I saw what you meant. All right, committee, any further questions? All right, seeing none. Thanks for being here.
Thank you so much.
All right, committee, as you may realize, we're on the floor for the next few days, and then not on any floor or laying on our own floor for the couple of days after that. And so we won't be meeting again until March 1st. On that day, we will be making our recommendations regarding the Board of Examiners and Optometry and the Kansas Department of Labor. On Wednesday, the 2nd, we will be looking at these budgets to make our recommendations there. Then Thursday and Friday, I don't see anything unless something pops up from the Senate to come to our committee, which I doubt very strongly, or at least I haven't heard anything, but it is possible. That's why those meetings are listed as call of the chair. We'll see, but I don't anticipate any meetings for Thursday and Friday of next week. So with that, until Tuesday, we are adjourned.